Hello and welcome to the Curator Salon podcast. I'm your host Geeta Joshi, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the mistake of treating Instagram like a gallery wall. So if you're an artist, you probably need to hear this episode. I think one of the biggest mistakes artists make online is assuming Instagram works like a gallery wall. You make the work, you photograph it beautifully, you post it, and you wait for people to respond, which honestly was how people were using the platform 10 years ago when it was much more about aesthetics. Back then, Instagram was much slower, much more aesthetic, and people lingered on static images. Feeds felt more like visual diaries. But that is not really how we use the platform anymore. Social media is social first, and that's what this platform rewards. It rewards content that keeps attention, creates interaction, and makes people feel involved. And I think sometimes artists forget to think about how they themselves use the app, because if you really audit your own behavior online, you may start to notice something. How often do you linger on a static post? How often are you watching short videos instead? How often do you engage with content because it taught you something, or it made you feel something, or it pulled you into someone's world? That's the shift. People don't just want to see finished outcomes anymore. They want context, perspective, story, movement, emotion. And when artists only post the final artwork, they often haven't given people enough of a handle on what they're actually looking at. And this is especially true online, where attention spans are incredibly short. And yeah, the social media platforms are kind of responsible for our reduced attention spans these days. So think about how quickly you scrolled yourself. Most people decide within seconds whether something is worth paying attention to. So if all they're seeing is painting for sale without any emotional or contextual entry point, there's nothing for them there to hold on to. And this is why I always tell my private clients to look outside the art world for inspiration. And I think fashion is a really great example, because yes, sometimes fashion brands will show the making process, the sewing and, attaching buttons and all that kind of minutiae. But just like, that kind of content, it might be the equivalent of you filming yourself painting or glazing ceramics. But that is not all they show across their whole feed. They'll show references, research, fittings, audience reactions, studio visits, textures, movement, styling, like the whole feeling of that collection. And then, we also see the final outfits as well. So even if they're just doing one piece or a very small collection, they still build a whole world around that final body of work. And artists can do exactly the same thing. That can be your framing process, the references you collect, the part where you're resolving a painting, the colors you keep returning to, the atmosphere of your studio, the details someone would never notice in a finished image, for example, drawing their attention and their eye to particular features, elements, and so on. So all of that helps people enter your creative world. And this is a really important distinction. Content that performs online usually gives people a way in, something to react to respond to, think about, feel, recognize, not just admire very briefly. And honestly, this can be a very simple shift. So here's a quick exercise. Look at your last few posts and ask, would somebody understand anything about my perspective, taste, or my creative world from these last few posts? Or are they only seeing finished outcomes? Because when people only see the outcome, the final product, they stay as observers from a distance. And when they understand your world, they start to feel connected. They feel a proximity to the artist. And connection is usually the thing that leads you to sales, but also leads them, to your subscriber list, your DMs, and so on. So, Instagram isn't just about visibility, and your content shouldn't only be about visibility. And that's also why artists sometimes feel confused when they suddenly do a talking video or more personal reel, and it performs far better than a polished artwork post. It's not because the artwork became less important. It's because the viewer, the audience, finally had a way to feel something beyond the image itself. And they were almost like having to do less work because you gave them that context. And I think that is the future of content for artists, not becoming an influencer or performing constantly, but understanding how to bring people closer to the work itself. And that's the difference. And it's a huge part of what we'll be covering inside From Noise to Known, which is my 3-day workshop starting on the 13th of May. And it's a workshop, not a class. So we'll actually be doing some of the work together during our 3 sessions. Because once you understand how people actually consume content, you stop posting into the void. You start creating content that people actually genuinely want to connect with. So I'm going to add the link to the class in the show notes, and I hope to see you there.